So while I've been editing this video, there's just been a really important update about the dog who caught coronavirus. So make sure you stay watching to the end while I'll bring you that update.
All over the world, people are abandoning their pets because they're concerned that they could spread coronavirus to the rest of their family. But is this true? Well, today I'm going to talk about the case of the Hong Kong infected dog and what this means to you and your pet. Hi, I'm Dr. Alex from ourpetshealth.com, where my aim is to help you and your pet live a healthier, happier life. And there's so much confusion and anxiety and fear around at the moment with the COVID-19 coronavirus infection that's sweeping the world. And a lot of people are really worried that their pet is at risk and that their pet could transmit the coronavirus to themselves and the rest of their family. A couple of weeks ago, a dog who was owned by a coronavirus infected person tested weak positive for the virus, and that was from nasal and oral swabs. So that was looking for viral material that was then amplified and checked to see if that was present, and it was found to be present. There were repeated tests taken and they were also found to be a weak positive result. Now what this means is that virus material, the virus was present in those areas in the dog. Now, initially, that wasn't thought to confirm infection because what can happen is the virus is in droplets. The dog could have been exposed to that, and that material was simply being picked up because it was present on the dog but hadn't actually infected the dog. Because there were repeat positive results, and they were always mild, weak positive results, and that's definitely worth bearing in mind, it was felt that this dog did have a mild infection. But it was never pumping out loads of virus, and the risk was felt to be very, very small. Now, actually, just a few days ago, a blood test has come back as negative. Now, what that blood test was looking at was for antibodies to the infection. Now, antibodies are proteins that are produced by the body's immune system in response to an infection. And so far, the blood test result is negative. Now, this again doesn't completely rule out an infection in this dog, but it does suggest that the infection, if there is one indeed, hasn't been a really significant event for this dog. And it's worth stressing as well that in all this time, the dog has been in quarantine and has showed absolutely no signs of being unwell. Now, the reason that this negative result can't completely rule out infection is because in some kind of mild infections, in asymptomatic infections, when an animal and when a person is otherwise completely fine, they might not be producing enough antibodies to be detected. Also, in acute infections, if you're testing really early on in the course of an infection, then it may be that you're too early to pick up the antibodies that have been produced. So what's happening with this Hong Kong dog that is suspected to have been infected with coronavirus is there will be another blood test in a week or two's time to again check for antibodies, and we're looking for an increase in antibody levels, or certainly antibodies becoming detectable, which would suggest that this dog has been infected. But how does this relate to you? What's the impact of this to you? Well, I think it highlights that actually the dog has never been unwell. Now, that's not to say other dogs won't become unwell, because clearly some people are also pretty much asymptomatic when they're infected with coronavirus. What it does mean is that even if your dog does become infected with coronavirus, then they're not going to be pumping out loads of virus particles, and the risk to you is going to be very, very, very small. Obviously, we need to take some precautions. Now, washing your hands is something that we should all be doing, and it's front of mind at the moment, but that would include after contact with your pet. Don't kiss your pet, don't let them lick your face as well, because remember, it's that coronavirus when it comes into contact with our mucous membrane, so that's with our mouth, our nose and our eyes, and that's how infection is transmitted. So if your dog has also, or your cat has come in contact with someone infected with coronavirus, then they should also be isolated, and that's advice that has been present for quite some time now. So that means that the interaction should be minimized, or certainly contact should be minimized, and again, just practicing good hygiene measures, washing your hands every time you touch them, every time you're picking up anything to do with your dog or your cat. So that would be a toy, their food bowl, that kind of thing.
Okay, so while I said that the dog had been completely well throughout the whole of its isolation in quarantine, it actually went home last Saturday. So after that blood test was taken and it came back as negative, it was allowed home. But since it's been home, the dog has actually died. Now, that is clearly a very significant development, but there's a few things to bear in mind. The first is that the dog was 17 years old. So it was a 17-year-old Pomeranian, which is an incredibly elderly age for them to reach. That's kind of an individual in their 80s or 90s, effectively, something like that. So it's not clear whether there were any other medical conditions this dog was suffering from. It's certainly likely. It's potentially there's a stress element to being in quarantine as well, being away from the owner. But unfortunately, the owner did not allow the authorities in Hong Kong to perform any kind of post-mortem autopsy. So there's always going to be a question mark, some speculation about what the exact cause of death was. I still think that everything I've said in this video holds true, given all of the lab results that have been run and the negative tests that have been returned. I still think there's a very low chance of your dog or your cat posing you any risk, but this is clearly an important update and it does leave some more question marks over the whole case.
Now, I've got another video on screen at the moment which talks about how to prepare your pet for coronavirus isolation, and I've also got my free guide about how to keep your pet as happy and healthy as possible. So until next time, I'm Dr. Alex. This is Our Pets Health, because they're family.